Live from the Willie Nelson and Friends Museum Showcase in Nashville, Tennessee. It's Music is Funny. Musicians talking to comedians about music and comedy. With your hosts, Raylan Nelson and Jonathan Bright.
Smoking, I'm so high, I keep toking, I'm drunk, but I'm still drinking too.
Welcome back to Music is Funny. I'm Raylan Nelson.
And I'm Jonathan Bright from the Raylan Nelson Band, back with another ridiculous and unnecessary intro, but let's give an intro anyway.
Because today we have an iconic video maker.
Yes, for everybody from Britney Spears to Guns N' Roses to Oasis to maybe not NXS.
440 videos, music videos that we all love, he directed.
Yeah, so we talk about a lot of good stuff, old punk rock, making videos,
Britney,
yada, yada, yada. And without further ado,
and Nigel Dick.
Oh, let's do one more intro because he has a podcast. Well, let's not, because I forget. I'll put it in the liner notes. Never mind. Thank you. Good night.
Okay, so we start every podcast off the same way. What's the first music you remember loving as a kid?
The very, 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 very first.
Well, the first great piece of music I heard as a kid was Telstar by the Tornadoes. Though the first record I remember singing was Volare, which was an Italian song.
Oh, yeah.
Sung by a British singer called Matt Monro. But Telstar is where it really kind of happened for me. And
yeah, I figured there'd be something besides Telstar, because that's way too cool for your very, very, very first favorite song. Because usually we can tell if somebody's lying if their first favorite song is something cool.
Well, I don't think Volare was a favorite song. It's just that I sang along to it. But hearing Telstar, which to this day sounds futuristic. I mean, that's 65 years ago, you know. I mean, it was a number one record in the UK. I don't think it really did that much over here. But the thing that's extraordinary about it, knowing it now, and God, the name of the producer is leaping out of my head. Anyway, he'd been in the RAF, which is the Air Force. My dad was also in the Air Force, and he'd been a technical guy with radios and whatnot. And he produced all these records in his bedroom, and he produced about 10 or 12 top 10 records out of his bedroom above a butcher's shop or something in the south of London. And they're extraordinary sounds. And it's very sad. He was a gay man. And of course, back in the 60s, that was not allowed. And he went on a rampage and murdered his the landlady, the lady who owned his apartment.
What?
And I think he then committed suicide. But when I first got Pro Tools,
Because he was gay? Why did he do that? Why did he murder?
Well, I don't think anybody knows why he murdered his landlady. It's a lot to do with his life. You know, she wanted money, and who knows? We'll have to look him up. I'll find the name.
Yeah,
and
interesting.
we'll send it to you. In fact, while we're doing this, I should be trying to find a name so I can give him a name check, because he's such an amazing guy. Joe Meek, that was his name.
Oh, yeah, he's there's like audio gear and stuff that's probably based on his designs. Yeah.
And like I was saying, when I first had Pro Tools, one of the things that I got was a Meequalizer.
I've had the same thing. And Joe Meek compressor. I didn't even know the backstory. Wow.
Huh.
If there is a CD, which I've got over there, which is the best of Joe Meek and all these different bands, and he would get them into his bedroom and make these amazing records, which still sound great.
I'm going to have to dig back through that.
Yeah, you'll have to send me some stuff.
I'm sure you guys might even want to cover one or two of his tunes.
I like this. Yeah.
Do you have a stylophone? You have almost every instrument in that studio of yours.
I think I do have a stylophone someone gave me years ago. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a very synthesizer thing, but it's like a pen, and you just run a stylus across these little notes and it kind of runs up and down. Yeah.
Huh.
And it's
We have to put it on
the size of a paperback.
Yep, exactly. Tiny. It's about that big.
Yeah, tiny.
Interesting. Okay, so moving on from Telstar, what was your next favorite? Like maybe teenagers?
Well, then I got into the Beatles. I saw the Beatles on TV on Sunday night at the London Palladium, this predates the coming to the States and Ed Sullivan show. So this is before they went to the States. And there was this variety program on Sunday night on British TV called Sunday Night at the London Palladium. And you can still go to the London Palladium. It's still a gig in the UK. Right. It's like 1 minute's walk from Oxford Circus, right in the centre of London. And they'd have a variety act. They'd have jugglers, and they'd have, what was that woman who had the little glove puppet, who's an American, Shani Lewis? Sherry Lewis.
Sherry Lewis.
With
Lamb
chop. Right.
Yep. Oh.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, from Liverpool, the Beatles. And they did I Want to Hold Your Hand. And I'm like, holy crap, this is the business. And from that point onwards, I'd been brought up to, my dad was into Glenn Miller and my mum was into deep opera. So, of course, me coming in right down the middle with pop music that was not allowed.
And yeah, I mean, you're very well known for all of your video stuff, but you started as a musician, right? I know you did records, but your first gigs, or I assume first passion was music.
Oh, totally. I wanted to be what you're doing. I wanted to be a guitar player. And I mean,
I see it. It's a beautiful 30
When did you start
another
playing?
one over there. And
When did you start?
Sorry?
When did you start playing guitar?
Well, I started on the recorder and then they sent me off to boarding school. And because I played the recorder for 2 years, when I got to boarding school, we had a music class and they gave us all recorders. And of course, I was straight into and they go, oh my God, this kid is a genius. We just gave him a recorder and already he's brilliant. And it was like, yeah, well, I've just been playing it for 2 years, haven't I? So then I was given a violin, which is like, I mean, if you've ever played a violin, you can be within a millimeter of being right on the note and be completely out of tune. So eventually I persuaded my mum and dad to buy me a Mervy Spanish guitar, which is in a cupboard over here, falling apart.
Now, was this post Beatles? Post singing?
Oh, yeah. This was post Beatles now.
Gotcha.
So I had a Spanish guitar and I started playing Donovan and stuff like that, though I was getting into Led Zeppelin by this point. So, of course, trying to play a whole lot of love and, what is and what should never be with a Spanish guitar on your own it's just not quite cutting it. So, and eventually when then I went to university, I had a band at university and then actually spent 3 months on the Paris metro earning my living playing the guitar all day long.
Busking.
Yes, thank you very much.
How old were you then?
I would be in my sort of mid-20s, I suppose, by that point.
And were you playing stuff you wrote or were you just doing covers?
I did covers. I mean, I tried playing stuff I wrote, and of course, the reception from the French populace going to work was not really killing it. So eventually you come around to like, okay, I'll play this song. And of course, I was still playing obscure covers. I was playing Mr. President by Randy Newman, which, what the fuck was I thinking? That was going to bring in the cash. And then went back to London within 3 weeks, was working for Stiff as a motorcycle messenger.
So your first gig really was just passing mail down on your motorcycle, driving around town.
Driving around town, dropping stuff off. I mean,
so you were there when the punk scene hit England and the Pistols and Clash and all that. How old were you? What was that like when these guys showed up? It had to be like pre-Beatles, and you see the Beatles and like, wow, these guys are fucking aliens. And then you see something like the Pistols or the Clash and like, what the fuck is this?
Well, it was The summer of 76 was very hot, which is unusual in the UK. And there was definitely a sense that if you were late teens, early 20s, trying to find work, you just could not find work. So there's a sort of a political, social sub feeling going on. And suddenly, the Damned happened, who were on Stiff. They were the first band ever to have a punk single and a punk album. And, the Pistols started happening, and it just exploded. And it was also at that point, there were 4 weekly music papers: Melody Maker Sounds, New Musical Express, and Record Mirror. So once one paper starts doing stories about punk bands, the other 3 have to catch up. So suddenly everybody's reading about it. Kids have got earrings, safety pins through their nose. If you have a spot, instead of trying to cover it, you put a lipstick around it to highlight it. So it totally changed the musical landscape overnight. And every band that was coming out at that point was suddenly punk or new wave. I remember Tom Petty coming in for his first tour in the UK, and he's like, punk/new wave. And it's like, no, he's not. He's got long hair for a start,
Right.
His trousers are proper, So, no, it was fantastic. And the thing that I loved about punk, because I wasn't a punk at all, I was already going quite bald. I had one earring, but I did not wear, whatever the bondage pants or anything like that. But the songs were fucking great. They're just such great short 3-minute songs. I was listening to one the other day, which I love, by the Rezillos, called "I Love My Baby Because She Does Good Sculptures." Yeah. Have you ever heard that song?
Oh, yes.
You guys should cover that, I think, actually.
That's not a bad
My
idea.
baby, because she does good It's called "I Love My Baby Because She Does Good Sculptures," and it's by the Rezillos. Okay. I don't love her for her curvy hips. I don't love her from her pouting lips. I love her because she does good sculptures. Yeah.
I love it.
Brilliant.
Okay.
It's just like nothing, it wasn't "I want to hold your hand," "let's go for a walk in the dust, in the sunset." It was just random out, and we had on Stiff, we had the adverts, and the adverts had a hit with Gary Gilmore's eyes. And Gary doesn't need his eyes to see, because Gary and his eyes have parted company. Just brilliant. And they went on tour with the Damned, and we had a poster on the wall which said, "The Damned play 3 chords, the adverts play 1. Hear all 4 chords at the following dates." Just brilliant advertising.
And punk was funny too. They're witty and funny.
Oh yeah, and quite just random and vicious at the same time. There was a great T-shirt that I always wanted, which you'd see some guy walking down the street and he's wearing his T-shirt, and on the back, if you'd been to see Motorhead, it was a list of Motorhead dates, and it would say Hitler's tour of Europe, and it would say 1939 or Poland, 1940. Holland, Belgium, France, 1942, Russia, and then it had 1944, England, and then cancelled. It was fucking brilliant. Just this sort of sense of humor, as well as just trying to do something completely different. And I remember coming to the States on my second trip and going, I'd met 2 guys who ran a record shop in Maryland, because they used to come into Stiff they'd buy a whole bunch of records, put them in a trunk, and take them back to the States to sell them. Actually, they had 2 shops, and they said, "Oh, we're going to go and see a punk band tonight in Washington." So we go to see this punk band, and the guitar player's wearing a McDonald's outfit, and he's got a brand new Les Paul and a brand new Marshall stack. I mean, I think it still had the cellophane, on the
Right.
and it's like, this isn't punk at all. They've got money,
Yeah.
and in England, I mean, to get a Les Paul, you had to mortgage your dad's car. They were so expensive. So, you bought any old piece of shit guitar you could find. So that was very interesting. That's when I saw the dichotomy of how the finance was affecting the music, if you like.
And it always does. And speaking, I mean, just from the short time we've worked with you in the past, you're a colossal smartass like we are. So you had to grow up with, did you have any like favorite, what's the first comedian or comic or comedic thing you remember? Because we talked to a lot of professional comedians on here too.
Oh, really? Okay. The first comedian I remember, well, Peter Sellers. My dad had Peter Sellers records, which of course were produced by George Martin, who went on to produce the Beatles. George Martin was known for his comedy work.
Wow, I had no idea.
Oh yeah, check him out. I mean, one and two great singles which you should check out are Peter Sellers with Sophia Loren. All right. And one is called I'm in trouble. Goodness Gracious Me. It's funny, it's cultural, it's historic. It's got these two wonderful, talents. And whoever knew that Sophia Loren was a comedian? And there's a great moment in one of them where, he's making her giggle. And obviously it was totally unscripted and they just kept it in because it's just so wonderful. Yeah. So look up Peter Sellers and Sophia Loren, those two singles. They're extraordinary. That's where my sense of humor comes from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're working at Stiff Record. How did you discover video and photography? Oh,
what's the first music video you remember loving? And then we have to find out that.
All right. Well, I kind of got in at the beginning of music videos. So, well, here's
so
the first
one of his.
between
one of mine actually. This is my favorite video.
It's not quite a music video, but almost. I remember seeing Graham Parker on Top of the Pops. Top of the Pops was a show which happened every Thursday night at 7:25, and would play, and you'd have all the artists who made the charts that week. And Graham Parker comes on, and I'd read about Graham Parker, and he said, yeah, it seems all right, but I'm not really loving the music. And they had a hit with Hold Back the Night, which is a soul tune. And, Graham Parker, well, still is about this high. He's very short. And he just attacked the mic with such passion. And I'm like, oh my God, I have to find out more about Graham Parker. And now I'm a fan now. Because he was like, hold back the night, it's just brilliant. And I'm like, okay, that's the point at which visuals and music really collided head on for me. Mm-hmm. And, I've always felt that when I make a video, it's really important to have performance, especially if the artist is any good, because you can relay that passion to the viewer.
So how did you get into?
Yeah, you're allowed to ask your question now, JB. Go ahead.
How did you go from the record label or wherever playing in bands to, were you always into photography, video, or did you just?
Well, I took a lot of photographs, and the boss of Stiff Records, who I have a love-hate relationship with, Dave Robinson, who you should look him up. He has an amazing story about coming to New York with a band called Brinsley Schwartz, which is probably too long a story for this episode, but they tried to make that story into a film twice.
Oh, wow.
Anyway, Robbo very cleverly realized that we were releasing these records, and they were always released on a Friday, so the kids were going to the shop on Saturday and buy the record. On Tuesday the charts would come out and it would go in at number one, and if you were rising up the charts you would get to be on Top of the Pops. So there was this A leads to B leads to C leads to D. Well, around this time, we were discovering at Stiff that if we released a record in the UK on a Friday, it had to be released in other European countries simultaneously, because otherwise, if it was being released in France and it was not being released on the same day, the French record shops would buy imports from the UK and sell it in France because it was available and kids knew about it. And the French distributor would not get the money. Wow. So we had to, just from a purely technical point of view, we realized that we had licensees in Denmark, Sweden, France, Germany, Holland, Greece, all across Europe, and they wanted to release the record simultaneously. So all of those record companies to ring up and we need Madness on the TV on next Thursday when the record's coming out. It's like, well, we can't do that because they're already appearing here. So Robbo, who dabbled in making film of his artists, realized that if he put them on film, he could put it on a videotape and send the videotape to the label so that the band could make an appearance on the TV on the day the record was released in that country.
Nice.
And he's a clever kind of chap. And he's like, why am I paying a production company to do this? I'll do it myself. So Robbo started directing. And one day he walks into my office. And at that point, I'd become the press officer. I'd been the PR guy for the label for 2 years. And he says to me, you're going to start producing for me. And I'm like, wow, I'm going to be a film producer. And this was like a Thursday afternoon. And I'm like, when am I going to start? Monday. And I'm like, I had a day and a half to wrap up all the stuff I was trying to do. And on Monday morning, I walked on the set and I'm like, hi, I'm the producer. And I know nothing. And eventually, the guy who ran the international department at the company, Alan Cowderoy, said to me, you take a lot of photographs, and you're working you already know how to produce. I've got $2,000. Is there any way you can make a video? Because Robbo doesn't want to do it. And I said, yeah, all right, I'll do it. I didn't have a fucking clue, no clue. So we made a video.
That sounds exactly how we make all of our videos.
There you go. You see, we both had the same process.
Except that I can go to YouTube and Google in how do you make a split screen video in Premiere Pro, and the answer pops up. You didn't have that luxury.
And then there was that one time that we just stole exactly what Nigel did in a video and just did that.
Yeah, what did you steal?
We literally stole some of your Britney Spears
video.
Our Britney
tribute. It was actually our tribute to you, Nigel. It wasn't.
I've never seen it. I have to check it out.
People think it's a tribute to Britney Spears, but it's actually just a tribute to you.
Yeah, literally green screened Raylan over the top of some of the shit that you shot. Very illegally. We didn't ask for permission or anything. We just put it out. Figure if you get sued, that's a great story too.
Yeah, totally.
And we need to get the video because we were talking about this earlier. The reason I think we all got along the first time we met is because when I met you, all of a sudden we're starting to talk about old punk rock. And I'm like, oh shit, he was actually there. Raylan's like, he did the Hit Me Baby One More Time video. So you had us coming and going there.
Yeah.
I've been very lucky. I've been in lots of places quite by chance at the right time.
And you were so sweet to tell me about Britney that day when I met you and I gushed on it. So would you mind telling my fans, what was Britney like when you did Hit Me Baby One More Time? Was it a good experience? Yeah,
I mean, she was amazing. I couldn't quite figure out why. In that, the minute we roll the camera, she was on it. I mean, she totally nailed the camera in terms of her looks and, the whole thing. And it was extraordinary and I couldn't figure out why. And of course, I lived in the UK up until that point most of my life and was totally unaware of this thing called the Mickey Mouse Club, which she'd been in for 4 or 5 years. So she'd been trained to be relaxed and, nailing it in front of the camera. And I couldn't understand how somebody of that age could be so savvy to, to the performance. And she was very dedicated. She did a load of rehearsal, was very eager to do another take in rehearsal. And when we shot, if she felt she hadn't got, a part of the choreography right, there was no sort of, do we have to do it again? There was none of that. It was like, I'd say, we need one more take. Okay, are we ready, everybody? All right, here we go. I was like, oh, this is easy.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd like to say that it was tremendously well directed in terms of my, you should do this, you should do. No, not at all. She just did it.
Yeah.
So it's like, if you're a record producer and somebody comes down, walks in and lays down a fantastic vocal take, why fuck with it?
Yeah.
Do you feel like that?
Every time, Raylan, that we record, I feel that way.
No, wait.
Yeah, I mean, being a good director or producer is knowing when to say, we've got it.
Yeah, he's also really good when we don't have it about getting me back into the groove. He's a really good producer.
Yeah.
So when did you write the Hit Me Baby One More Time video, or were you just like, did you come up with the ideas for it, or did you just kind of direct from there, from what the story was or whatever?
What happens normally is you get sent the track, you're told what the budget is and when they want to shoot it. And I was also sent a picture of Britney, which later became the cover of the first album.
Yeah.
Which incidentally, I think is a horrible album cover, but that's another story. So I wrote an idea, which I thought was great, and they rejected it, and which is fine. And they rang me up and they said, look, Britney's got an idea. Well, you should speak to Britney. And, I'm in my 40s at this point, and I'm going, oh, great. I've got to speak to a 16-year-old girl and take notes from her.
Right.
Now.
Right.
Is that where we're at? Anyway, I swallowed my pride. And so, we're on the phone, and I'd already met her about 3 or 4 weeks before. And she says, well, I just want to be in a school with a load of cute boys dancing. And I'm like, okay. And what happens? I know, that's it. So, I put the phone down and I'm like, for fuck's sake. And I went to an all boys boarding school in England for 8 years. I went to a university which was 90% blokes. So I don't think I'd ever had a conversation with a 16-year-old girl. And then you suddenly go, you know what, Nigel? She's a 16-year-old girl. She's going to appeal to other 16-year-old girls.
Bingo.
So perhaps she knows better what is right for her video than you do.
Mm.
And, because my basis was always a gritty stage with a fucked up amp with a material at the front flapping and a rusty drum kit. I mean, that was my go-to sort of basic 0.0, which Britney had no idea about that. So you just go, okay, she's 16. It's going to be for other 16-year-old girls. All right, I'll make it work. And you get
loved it. I loved it. I mean,
so all right. So you're talking about working with Britney, who's very polished, comes from the Mickey Mouse Club, right up through the system. Then you get a hold of some people like Guns N' Roses. Like, what's the difference in working with those two type of bands? Granted, Guns N' Roses had a major label deal and stuff, but they're quite different personality-wise than Britney, I would imagine.
It's a great question.
Yeah, I mean,
Thanks, Raylan.
The attitude I've always had is I'm not the record label. I might have an opinion about what they should do, but a Britney video should not look like Guns N' Roses, should not look like Alice Cooper, should not look like Nickelback, should not look like Cher. These are all very different musical personalities.
And might I interject that he could have started naming bands and got to like 350 and still have bands to name of videos that he has done.
Yeah. So, I mean, Warren Zevon, I did a video with him, which, was very exciting for me. I mean, so it's like, what do you look like when you walk through the door? I mean, when you guys walked through the door, I was like, I'm trying to figure out what's going on here. And then the minute you all plugged in and you started playing, it's like, wow, this is fucking great. I love it. You know, so why should, you know, I mean, occasionally you do something where you go, I'm sorry, the rhythm guitar player who does not sing backing vocals, who's kind of going to be in the back of the video, should not be wearing a white t-shirt where everybody else is wearing black. Because if the lead singer is in the front of the scene and he's wearing black and your eye is always going to this guy buried over in the right, who potentially might not even be in the band next week, then he's got to change his t-shirt. So you learn stuff like that, but the lead singer of the band had better be pretty fucking good. Otherwise, you're going to have troubles because the charisma is what's going to come through the screen or not.
Do you ever get much pushback from those huge artists when you're interjecting ideas where like, can you tell Axl Rose, I need you to do this or that, or just let him go and let him do their thing? I guess.
Oh yeah. I mean, I suppose after a year or two of doing it, I would go up to the artist at the beginning of the video and I would say, look, if I was singing the vocal in this video, you know, I'd be throwing my hair back, indicating hair because I don't have it. and I would do this, or I'd get down on one knee, or I'd pretend I was putting my foot on the monitor or whatever. But if you don't feel that is right for you, you have to let me know because, and I just go, because, you know, you're not Britney, you're not Guns N' Roses, blah, blah, blah. And a good example of that is in Welcome to the Jungle, which is the first video I did for Guns N' Roses. You know, actually, I think it was in Sweet Child, which is the second video. He does that funny snaky dance. Yep. And I'm like, well, that's coming right out. We're not going to have that in the video. And you know, when we're cutting it together, I told the editor, you see all that bit? Every time he does that, take it out. Well, somebody who I might have been dating at the time came into the end and goes, oh, that's so sexy. And when she walks out, I go to Michael, my editor, he said, you know, that stuff I told you to take out, put it back in. Because I'd never seen that before. And that wasn't, you know, rock, you know, it wasn't Coverdale. Sweet Child of Mine has two versions. The original version was color intercut with bits of black and white, which was shot with a handheld, hand-cranked camera. And it started playing on MTV and it blew up. It exploded. It's the video and the song that established Guns N' Roses. And after about a month, Alan Niven, who was their manager, came to me and he said, you know, I know we were shooting loads of footage. Is there a way you could cut a second video and perhaps transfer all the footage black and white? So we cut a second version, which is all in black and white, which is different from the other version. It uses all the outtakes, basically. The black and white version on YouTube has now become, in inverted commas, the original version and has got over 1 billion views, 1.5 billion, I think now. And what was originally the original version, which was color and black and white, is now listed as the alternative version and has, I don't know, millions of views, but not billions of views. So if you want to go and see the snake dance, it's definitely in the original version. So when you go on YouTube, look under whatever it says, alternate or you know, optional version.
Okay.
That's definitely got the dance in it, where I can't remember if the black and white version has the dance in it or not.
I'm going to watch both of them.
I wonder what 200 billion views on YouTube. I guess the label's making all that money. If there's any money to be made.
Yeah. I mean, hopefully the publishers make some money, so that goes to the writer.
That's true. You have to pay publishing everything.
So you'd have to pay publishing. And it depends on the individual deal that the record label has made with YouTube. But now there's only, whatever it is, 3 labels, you know, Warner's, Universal, and Sony, I think, or whatever it is. So they've all got blanket agreements, because as we know, the income stream has changed drastically.
Yes, it
Yes.
has.
Yes.
I mean, when I was sort of in the first quarter of my video making career, it was accepted that a newly signed band would only, in inverted commas again, only get $300,000 for their first video.
And that's that's on the $500,000 they spent on the record.
Yeah, yeah. So, and many artists were like, this is a freaking joke. You know, I'm spending more money today and tomorrow than I have in the last 6 months trying to make this record. But at the same time, when I used to be a press officer at Stiff, I had a poster on my wall that somebody gave me, and it says, "What happens if you don't promote? Nothing." So at that point, not YouTube, MTV was the biggest sales impetus that you could get. So that's why it was worth spending that money. And a contemporary video director who I have never met, but I read an interview with him at the time, said, "It's impossible to make a video for less than $1 million," which just made me laugh, because like I've made 430 videos and never had $1 million. So it is possible. Yeah.
430 videos.
I think it might even be up to 440 now.
440.
That's not bad.
You
Well,
hang in there, Nigel.
it's a numbers game. If you make over 400 videos, one of them's got to be good, right?
Well, what I'm getting at is if you keep trying and keep working this hard, I think you might actually do something with this video stuff. You're on your stick.
You just might be able to work with the Raylan Nelson band again.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
Dream. Did you ever have videos you were doing with people that weren't into making videos at all and were just like,
oh yeah.
Like and they're probably different, but at least once a year I go down like either a Liam or Noel rabbit hole from Oasis and just watch interviews, because they're two of the funniest guys, especially Liam. He just slays me. But you've worked with him. I can't imagine him being super pumped about doing videos, but I could be wrong. I don't know.
No, they hated it.
Okay.
They absolutely hated it. I've seen footage of Noel talking about one of the videos that I did for them, and he said, "A complete fucking waste of an afternoon," which was not the kind of praise that I was looking for, you know. So yeah, I mean, I think on the last video I did for them, we were shooting somewhere out in the east of London. It was a really hot summer day, and I was doing close-ups of them one by one. And the other four, whoever it was not doing the close-up, were outside playing soccer with each other. And it's like, all right, get Liam in. It's Liam's turn. So Liam comes in, and he's dripping with sweat. You know, his hair is in what we used to call rat tails. You know, it's not nicely combed, it's just hanging over his forehead like that. And I'm like, okay, hair and makeup, come on, you know, let's make him look nice. And he's like, "I'm ready, fuck it, I'm ready." And I'm saying, "Liam, you've got to look great in your video." And he said, "It's not my video, it's your video." And you know, this is the point of, I've been at this point a number of times with a number of different artists where you just want to slap them and go, "Look, I'm here with all these people and we're spending all this money to help your career."
Yeah.
You know, I'm doing this for you. I've been planning this for weeks. I've for fuck's sake, I've flown 6,000 miles to be here. You know, I've given the chance to go and hang out with my mates just to be here with you guys, to give you the best video I can give you. And you don't care. And you just go, all right, but you still care and you still want to do the best job you can.
Yeah, it's wild. I can't. And singers are the worst anyway to deal with.
Stop it.
What happens?
What's your favorite video that you've done? Do you have a favorite?
I'm asked this question a lot. and I always respond the Band-Aid video.
I was going to ask about that because I just watched a documentary on the We Are the World thing.
We Are the World, yeah.
So I can imagine, lay out that scene.
What's Band-Aid video?
Let them know at Christmas time, let them feed the world. If I played it.
Okay.
It was We Are the World before We Are the World. Yes.
Right.
And the reason I say Band-Aid is my favorite video is because we raised, I'm going to say we, because I did work on it, over £100 million, I think £140 million for famine relief. So that 3 days worth of work, well, it was really a week's worth of work that I did, saved lives. And I don't think any other video I've ever done has done that.
Well, and if you couple it with all of the help that the We Are the World thing did, because in the documentary, they're admitted, we just took that idea because it was in the UK. We're going to do it with American artists.
Okay.
And because they were going to make a record or something. And they basically admit, I don't know if you've seen the documentary yet. It's pretty good. But they just admitted, we took, and I think they even got Bob Geldof to help because he had already done it. Yeah.
Oh yeah, he flew in.
So what was the shooting like on the day with all those people herding cats, trying to get them all up there? Was it fun? Was it stressful?
No, actually, because everybody very quickly got a sense of what it was about. And quite early on during the day, everybody showed up at 11 o'clock. And about, an hour and a half later, somebody's tummy is rumbling. And they said, "Hey, Bob, is there any food?" And he just turned around and he said, "You're a fucking pop star. There's a fish and chip shop on the corner. Buy your own fucking lunch." And there was like a desperate silence. And everybody went, "Okay, I get it now."
Right. So was yours a video or was it a video of the actual performance? Because the We Are the World stuff, they were shooting a video and recording it at the same time.
Well, of course, as Band-Aid was really the first video, we didn't really know what we were doing.
Right.
And it was the first documentary thing that I'd ever shot.
Oh, no shit.
So I was very early on in my career. So we had a couple of cameras down there, which were provided for free, thanks to my buddy, director of photography, Dave Bridges. The other camera was operated by, what's his name? Who's now an Oscar-winning director of photography. So we had serious camera work down there, and the first thing that was shot was the big chorus, "Feed the World," and then we did all this, individual people one by one, and I was just, if it moved, I shot it. It was that simple. Because I figured I was going to have to cut it together the next day. The film was processed overnight.
Wow.
So I cut it together, and the cut you now see on YouTube was the cut we did within 24 hours of me walking away. And a week later, when it started all happening, Dave, who'd been the cameraman, said to me, if I can have a producer credit, I'd like to cut. Can you send me all the footage and I will cut together a making of? And we didn't know what making ofs were back then, really. And he made a 29-minute sort of behind the scenes, I think we would have called it, which was actually nominated for a Grammy, though it did not get a Grammy. And that is somewhere on YouTube now. So I was too busy to cut.
Forgive my ignorance, but this was still film, right? No digital.
Oh, yeah.
So when you're editing stuff together, there's a little more involved than there is now with computers and just zip, 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 zip.
No, when I walked away from the shoot at 11 o'clock, I took all the negative in my car, drove out to the airport, which is where Technicolor, which was the color film processing plant, was. Went home to bed, got up in the morning, went back to get all the processed film, to bring it back into the centre of London, to take it into the Tola Cine Suite, where we had to transfer all the film to tape to get the look and everything, and then went upstairs in the same facility, which is called Visions, which I don't think exists anymore. And as the finished 1 hour tapes were coming off with a film on it, we would start editing it. You know, it's like, all right, this has all got the Boy George footage on it. All right, where's Boy George in the track? Because, of course, we just heard the song for the first time because it's been mixed overnight. And so we edited all through the night. The shoot was on Sunday, processing on Monday and whatnot, editing Monday night. And I walked out with a finished tape at 8 o'clock in the morning on Tuesday morning, which was then delivered to Top of the Pops at lunchtime. And they agreed that they would show it on Thursday and it would be introduced by David Bowie, who had not been able to make the recording. So
Crazy.
within four days of people arriving, it was on TV. And that edit has remained unchanged.
That's some pretty punk rock shit, though. And it's probably because Bob Geldof was spearheading the whole thing. But the no bare bones, we're just going in, we're going to fucking get it done. We're going to do it ourselves and just not even think about it. Let's go in and do it.
I highly recommend that if you meet Bob Geldof, you don't try and challenge him in a discussion because you will lose. And you will not only lose, you will lose with great shame. He, throughout the entire Band-Aid process, and it's now 39 years ago, they've never had a phone number and they've never paid a penny in office rent. They've always worked off other people's desks or whatnot. So in the 4 days up to Band actually shooting the stuff, he would be right here beside me because there was a spare phone in my office. So he's at one point, he's trying to call a program in the UK called The Tube. It was then called The Tube, which was the sort of the shiny new TV show about music. And he's trying to get The Tube to come down to London. They were based up in Newcastle, to come down to London to shoot on Sunday at Band-Aid to get publicity. And The Tube was the enemy of another British TV music show called The Old Grey Whistle Test, which is the sort of the respectable, now we're going to have an interview with Van Morrison about his latest release kind of show. So two very different approaches. And Bob is beside me and he's talking to the guy up in Newcastle, and Bob says, right, you've got to come down on Sunday. You have to shoot what's going on and use it in The Tube. And the guy at The Tube says, who else is going to be there? And Bob says, I'm going to have CBS News, NBC News, CNN, the BBC, the ITV, the London Telegraph, the London Times, the New York Times, Old Grey Whistle Test. And the guy goes, stop. If the Old Grey Whistle Test is shooting it, we can't. And Bob says, of course you can. No, Bob, you don't understand. Whistle Test is our sworn enemy and we cannot do it if they're doing it. And Bob says, this is about people's lives. This is not about petty, angriness about, your shows. And the guy's like, I'm sorry, Bob, if they're shooting it, we will not. And so Bob, it's like, oh, fuck, he's going to go off the edge right now. And he grabs the phone. He says, listen to me. On Monday morning, Robert Maxwell, who's the big media guy, has promised me the front page of the Daily Mirror, which is a big UK paper. He's promised me the front page of the Daily Mirror and a double page spread on the inside. On the left-hand side of the double page spread will be a list of all the people who've helped us. On the right-hand side will be a list of all the people who refuse to help us. And so far, you're the only person on the right-hand side of the page. And he slammed the phone down. And I'm like, what the fuck? I'd never seen anything like that. And as I'm like staring at him, like my phone rings, give me Geldof. So I hand over the phone. The guy's rung back, and Bob's going, yep, okay, deal. Yes, okay, we'll do it. And Bob puts the phone down, and I says, what just happened? And he said, he's agreed to do it on the condition that If I go to Africa to see how this money is being spent, he will be the only film crew that will follow us through Africa. He says, I've been waiting for some idiot to sign up for that.
Wow.
So he would do this the whole time.
Savvy.
He would challenge people, and we did a Zoom thing with him before Christmas, and he's still as passionate and as angry about this as ever. And I don't think I've ever met anybody in my entire life who has his extraordinary passion and intelligence.
That's amazing. So, who of all the people you worked with, you said, what's your favorite video? Who were some of the funniest?
Least favorite?
Funniest people. Well, he's not going to say least favorite. I thought about that, but some of the funniest people you worked with, the best hangs on a video set, obviously present company excluded.
Oh yeah, we're probably.
Yes, obviously it's a very high bar to try and find someone. Well, very, very unhip, but one of my favorite bunches of people, Toto.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
Lovely, lovely, lovely people. And I was, before I worked with them, I was totally in awe of Lukather because of his play. Apart from the fact he's played on 1,500 albums.
Yes, you're right.
All kinds of music. And, he's a joker. When I met him, I was like, oh, I wasn't expecting this. And at the end of the second day on the first job I ever did with them, Lukather comes up to me and he says, I need to ask you a favor. And I'm like, well, obviously, I wonder what it is. And I said, yeah. He says, if I give you my phone number, can we hang out? And I'm like, total fanboy. And I've probably done 30 jobs with him and Toto over the years. I've had lunch with him numerous times. He never lets me pay. I've spent Christmas at his house twice, so, and we've had some disagreements, we've had some moments, but it wasn't a sort of, he's become a very dear friend, and which sometimes is actually kind of difficult, because if you're working for somebody and you're working for them as well as with them, you want to be able to say, look, I'm sorry, I'm going to tell you something you don't want to hear now. And it doesn't matter because you might never see them again. Whereas if you have a personal relationship with that person, that conversation becomes much more complicated.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, Toto's one of those weird bands that used to get shit on because I guess every player was so accomplished at their instrument, maybe because they're all session musicians. They had these huge hits, but they were like, it's kind of like Nickelback gets shit on now. Nobody really hates them. It's just become a joke. They're like that punchline word. And you listen to the records, you see Nickelback being interviewed. You're like, I don't see what all the hubbub's about. These guys seem like nice guys, but some people get tagged.
I've done 19 jobs with Nickelback.
Wow.
They are sweethearts.
They're funny too. They do some funny TikTok.
Oh, and they take the piss out of themselves.
Yes, they do.
Oh, yeah.
So they understand. They understand. I think Toto, Lukather's probably the same way. They get it after a certain point. Like, all right, whatever. I mean, they do go home and sleep on a pile of cash, so that helps soften the blow. But
I liked Nickelback songs, and then I was scared to say I liked them, because
well, I mean,
so political all of a sudden.
On some level, this is what is so wonderful about our business, is that Nickelback appeal to. I went to a gig down the road from where I live now to see them about 6 years ago. Massive parking lot, 2 cars and 9,998 pickup trucks.
right.
That's their people. So who am I to question the enjoyment that they bring to that group of people? If I work with some heavy metal band, their guys look completely different. If I work with a prog rock band, their people are different. They all love music. They all have a passion for something which finishes their day well. It's not about politics. Well, sometimes it is, but it's about, you should try going to the F sharp there. Oh, wow. damn, whoa, what just happened? So that's the thing which is just wonderful about music, and it works all over the world.
Yeah.
That's what.
Here's a story which I love to share, which really shows this off. About 10 years ago, I was hired to do a Pepsi commercial and shoot it in Kuala Lumpur, which is in Malaysia. And it was with a Pakistani artist who is also quite popular in India. Pakistani artist is well known in Indian cinema. These are two countries which want to tear each other's hearts out. And his name's Ali Safar. And the song that was featured in the commercial had this sort of interesting Euro disco kind of was the sort of the rhythm bed. But he was doing that, kind of stuff you hear when you get off the plane in Singapore or Thailand or wherever it is. And I'm like, wow, this is very interesting. So we had a break and I'm saying, so Ali, where did you grow up? And he says, well, I grew up outside whatever the capital of Pakistan is, and I forget now.
Rayland?
Karachi, is it?
Yep.
Anyway, I grew up like 100 miles outside of town, and my dad did this, that, and the other, and blah, blah, blah. And I said, so what kind of music did you grow up listening to? And I'm expecting, a bunch of artists I've never heard of. So what kind of music did you grow up listening to? Oh, the usual Queen, Zeppelin, Pink Floyd. And I'm like going, holy fuck, Dark Side of the Moon is big in Pakistan. Who knew?
Yeah. Who knew?
So I'm sure you've got fans in Japan.
We do. We have them, we do have them. You can see the analytics.
We have
sometimes.
tens of fans in Japan.
When I get brave enough to look at the analytics, I'm like, holy shit, people are listening everywhere. It's crazy.
That's the wonderful thing about the world in which we live in now.
That's true.
You have a following around the world. So who, if you choose to, you can communicate with. So unless you're Roger Waters from Pink Floyd and you wish to be very political, your music can soothe hearts around the world.
Yeah, it's really cool. Okay, so last question. We end every podcast this way, and thank you so much for doing this with us. Do you have your own, my grandpa's Willie Nelson, and do you have your own Willie Nelson story, or do you know who Papa Willie is?
Do I have a story about Willie Nelson? I do.
Yeah. Oh, good. Okay.
So I did a job for Jason Mraz. All right.
Yeah.
And Jason's very nice, liked it. We had a lot of fun. And about a month later, and his first hit mentions your grandfather, jiving like Willie Nee, blah, blah, whatever that is in the tune. So he mentions Willie Nelson in his song.
Oh, shoot. Why didn't I know that?
Check it out. Anyway, so I get a phone call and it's from his manager. And he says, are you busy tonight? And I'm like, no, why? He says, if you've got a camera, Jason has been asked to play with Willie here in LA, and we want to get some footage of Jason playing with Willie. So if you can go down and shoot the gig, that would be great. And I'm like, yeah, okay, give me a couple $100 and I'll make it happen. So I go to the gig, I get backstage and Jason's there and he's like, oh, I'm a bit nervous. I'm going to open a set for Willie and fine. So they put me, as they always do, back by the sound desk. All right. So I set up my camera by the sound desk, put the camera on, focus it. And ladies and gentlemen, opening for Willie tonight, Jason Mraz. And so Jason comes on stage and plays 5 or 6 numbers and I shoot that and blah, blah, blah. And Jason goes off stage. And then I'm sitting there and I've never seen Willie live. And suddenly, ladies and gentlemen, Willie Nelson. And he comes on, the place goes bananas, everything is great. And I remember the drum riser is about 100 foot long and has 4 high letters saying www.willienelson.com, which is like, okay. And then suddenly, like 6 songs in, a huge Confederate flag comes dropping down. No, Texan flag comes
Yeah,
dropping.
Texas.
And
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, that's interesting. And then it's just got to the bottom, and Willie changes to another song. Somebody off stage just frantically, but it goes up, and then suddenly in another song it comes down. And it's quite obvious that Willie's just going from one song to the other. There's no set list or whatever. And what I realize is that every time he does a song which mentions Texas, the Texas flag comes.
Yeah.
But then I fall asleep. I'd been editing the night before, so now I'm like this, and I fall into a deep sleep.
What?
And suddenly I'm woken up by, "Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, and good night." And there's a huge roar and all the lights go on, and I wake up and I realize the gig is over, and I have not shot Jason Mraz performing with Willie Nelson. I've slept through it. And I'm like, oh my God, what am I going to do? Because I've left my camera bags and whatnot in Jason's dressing room.
Oh,
What am I? Oh my God, this is the first time this has happened. I've blown it. I've blown the gig. So I'm quivering with fear, and I walk backstage, and the first person I see is Jason. And he's sort of standing there, and he's got his guitar on. And I'm like, "Jason, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." He says, "Yeah, I am too. I just stood here all fucking night. Willie walked off, climbed in his tour bus and drove away, and I never sang a note." Willie had forgotten to invite him on stage to sing with him.
oh, thank baby Jesus. Ooh.
And Jason was just standing there with his guitar all tuned up, all ready to come on. And Willie and the band walked off stage, walked straight past him without saying a word, bus and drove away.
Did you come clean and go, yeah, it's a bummer? Or did you say, I actually slept through it?
I can't remember, but I think I kept my mouth shut.
That's what I was about to say.
I wonder if whoever was supposed to tell Jason, he was supposed to probably go out there on the gospel set and sing
That's
the
what we've all
gospel set.
seen with Willie.
That's the normal thing, so maybe someone's forgot to just be like, go out there and sing the gospel says kind of songs everyone knows. He could have done little diddles on his guitar and anyway. Oh my gosh.
I tend to think it's because your grandpa's a colossal asshole. That's what it was.
Not true. But
Kidding.
honestly, Nigel, I've fallen
got-
asleep like 50 times at Papa Willie shows, throughout my childhood. So it's okay.
No, I mean, I've got a lot of time for Willie, and, he's written, some wonderful songs. The Linda Ronstadt performance of Crazy is just extraordinary. So, I mean, it's not because I have any beef with Willie, I mean, he's an extraordinary artist. He's probably written more hits than anybody.
He probably honestly didn't even know who Jason Mraz was at the time. Like, to be honest,
he doesn't even know who Ray Lynn is.
Yeah, he barely knows who I am. No, but I remember he did the CMT Crossroads with Jack White, and this was 13 years ago or something. And Amy and I had to show him who Jack White, like all this good stuff that Jack White had done, because he just wasn't aware. He's doing his own thing. He's got a lot to keep together, and he's not, unless someone shows him new music, he's not going to listen to it. So we send him stuff that we like and everything.
How can you be au fait with every single artist in the charts? It's impossible.
Yeah.
It's absolutely impossible. So, I mean, I still have thousands of records. I've got 2007-inch records in my garage, and I still go through it. It's like, wow, I never knew that so-and-so wrote the B-side.
Right.
Yeah.
It's just, you can't, I mean, unless you are a complete, somebody who never goes to the bar, never drink, never watches TV, and just obsesses about every record that comes out. It's just impossible.
Nigel, you're one of my favorite people. Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry, Raylan, go on.
I was just going to say, you're one of my favorite people I've met on this musical journey of ours, and I'm so glad we're friends.
Well, it's been my pleasure, and I loved seeing you guys play. And I think I'm waiting for you to break through, because what you do and the way you do it and the approach that you have is quite unique. I mean, you're not Beyonce, you're not Etta James, and you never will be, and that's fine.
Yeah.
You have a really intriguing musical approach, which I love, and it's got a visual side, which I think is great. And the sooner people get hip to it, the better. You guys should be playing. Guys should be playing the festival circuit every summer.
Yeah.
You're damn right there, Nigel. We did some festivals last year. We're breaking in slowly but surely.
It's happening. Yay. Thanks, Nigel.
Okay.
We
I'll see you in
thank
the
you, brother.
charts.
Yes.
Nigel Dick is my favorite video maker.
Yeah, man. It was good to talk to him. It's been a long time, and I love that guy.
And he's probably going to come do a Willie Nelson band video, and he's a huge fan.
He is a huge fan. We'll give him that. Anyway, enjoy your groceries.
And we're huge fans. Don't be an asshole.
I know your mama's name.
Did we cheers yet?
Enjoy your cigarettes.